Rain fell hard on the small city hospital. It was almost midnight. Inside, a young nurse named Amara sat quietly at her desk. Her eyes were tired. She had worked a double shift, and her feet hurt badly. But she could not stop. Her mother was sick at home, and the medicine was expensive. Amara needed every hour of work she could get. She looked at the clock. 2 more hours until her shift ended. She closed her eyes for a moment and thought about her mother's weak smile that morning. "I will bring your medicine soon, Amy," she had whispered before leaving home. That promise kept her going, even when her body wanted to give up. Suddenly, the hospital's back door burst open with a loud bang. Amara jumped up from her chair. Cold rain and wind rushed into the hallway. 3 big men walked in fast, carrying someone between them. The person was covered in blood. His shirt was torn, and his face was pale like paper. "Help him, now," one of the men shouted. His voice was rough and dangerous. His eyes looked straight at Amara, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Amara froze for a second. Something about these men felt wrong. They did not look like normal people bringing a patient. Their clothes were expensive but dark. Their eyes were sharp and alert, like they were watching for danger every second. One of them had a gun hidden under his jacket. She saw it for just a moment, but her nurse training took over. A person was hurt. She had to help. "Bring him this way," Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady. She led them to an empty room at the end of the hallway, away from the main ward. The men laid the wounded man on the bed. Amara turned on the light and gasped quietly. He had a deep gunshot wound in his side. Blood soaked through the sheets already. His face was strong and sharp, but right now it looked weak and full of pain. "He needs a doctor. A real surgeon," Amara said, reaching for the phone on the wall. A hand grabbed her wrist before she could dial. It was the tallest man, the one who had shouted earlier. "No doctors. No police. No records," he said slowly, his voice cold as ice. "You will fix him. Only you. Do you understand?" Amara's heart pounded. I am just a nurse. I cannot do surgery. If the bullet is still inside, he could die." The man leaned closer. "Then you better make sure he does not die." Amara looked at the wounded man on the bed. His breathing was shallow. His lips were turning slightly blue. She had seen serious injuries before, but never with men standing over her, watching her like hawks, ready to do something terrible if she made one wrong move. She took a deep breath. She had no choice. "I need clean equipment, gloves, and space. Please wait outside," she said firmly, surprising even herself with her own courage. The men hesitated, then stepped back near the door, still watching closely. Amara worked fast. She cleaned the wound carefully. Luckily, the bullet had only grazed him deeply and had not gone too far inside. She managed to stop the bleeding and stitch the wound with steady hands, even though her heart was racing the whole time. Sweat mixed with the tension in the small room. After almost an hour, the man's breathing became stronger. Some color returned to his face. Amara wiped her forehead and finally allowed herself to breathe normally. That is when his eyes opened. Dark, sharp eyes stared straight at her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Amara felt like she could not look away. There was something in his gaze, pain, exhaustion, but also strange gratitude. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I'm your nurse," Amara answered simply. "You lost a lot of blood. You need rest." He tried to sit up, but winced in pain and fell back onto the pillow. "The men outside, they work for me," he said quietly. "My name is Damien." Amara did not respond. She had already guessed that this man was not an ordinary patient. The way his men obeyed him, the fear in their eyes when they spoke to him. He was clearly someone powerful and dangerous. Maybe even someone from the city's criminal world that people whispered about in fear. As she prepared to leave the room to get him water, Damien suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand. His grip was weak but urgent. "Wait," he said. His eyes searched her face desperately. "Please stay with me tonight." Amara's breath caught in her throat. She looked at his hand holding hers, then at his tired, pleading eyes. Every instinct told her to run far away from this dangerous man and his dangerous world. But something in his voice, something broken and lonely, made her stay rooted to the spot. Before she could answer, A loud sound echoed from outside the hospital. Police sirens. Amara's eyes widened in fear. Damien's face turned pale, and his men rushed into the room, panic clear on their faces. They found us, one of them whispered. Amara looked at Damien, her hand still in his, her heart pounding harder than ever. Whatever happened next, she knew her simple, quiet life had changed forever, starting tonight. The police sirens grew louder outside the hospital. Amara's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her own ears. Damien's men moved fast, checking windows, whispering to each other in low, panicked voices. "They cannot find him here," the tall man said, looking at Amara with cold, warning eyes. "You will make sure of that. Understand?" Amara nodded quickly, too scared to speak. She looked at Damien, still lying weak on the bed, his hand no longer holding hers, but his eyes still watching her closely. "There is a storage room down the hall," Amara said suddenly. "No cameras. No one checks it at night. We can move him there." The men looked at each other, then nodded. Two of them carefully lifted Damien, careful not to open his stitches, and followed Amara through a quiet back hallway. Her legs were shaking, but her mind stayed focused. She had made her choice the moment she agreed to treat him. Now she had to protect that choice. They placed Damien on an old bed inside the storage room, surrounded by boxes of supplies and unused equipment. Amara quickly grabbed a blanket and covered him, then stepped back into the hallway, just as two police officers walked through the main entrance. Her heart nearly stopped. "Excuse me, miss," one officer said, walking toward her. "We received a report of gunfire near this area tonight. Did anyone come in with injuries?" Amara forced herself to stay calm. She thought about her mother at home, waiting for her. She thought about the medicine money she desperately needed from this job. If she lost this job, or worse, got arrested for helping a criminal, everything would fall apart. "No, officer," she said, keeping her voice steady. "It has been a quiet night. Only 2 minor cases, a broken arm and a fever." The officer studied her face for a moment. Amara held her breath. "All right, let us know if anything unusual happens," he said finally, before walking back outside with his partner. Amara let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Her hands were shaking badly now. She walked quickly back to the storage room, where Damien's men were waiting nervously. "They're gone," she whispered. The tall man nodded, some tension leaving his shoulders. "Good. You did well, nurse." Amara did not feel like celebrating. She had just lied to the police to protect a dangerous stranger. What had she gotten herself into? For the next few days, Amara continued to secretly treat Damien in the hidden storage room. She checked on him during her breaks and after her shifts, cleaning his wound, changing his bandages, and making sure infection did not set in. His men stayed close, always watching, but they slowly began to trust her a little more. Damien said very little at first. He watched Amara quietly as she worked, studying her the way someone studies a puzzle they cannot quite understand. One night, as she finished changing his bandage, he finally spoke. "Why did you help me?" he asked. "You knew what I was. You knew the danger." Amara paused, thinking about the answer. "You were bleeding. You needed help. That's all that mattered to me in that moment." Damien's eyes narrowed slightly. "Most people would have called the police immediately, or run away. I'm not most people," Amara said simply, packing away her supplies. A small, tired smile appeared on Damien's face, the first one Amara had seen from him. "No," he said quietly. "I don't think you are." As the days passed, Amara learned small pieces about Damien's world, even though he was careful about what he shared. She noticed the way his men obeyed him without question, the way they scanned every room before entering, the way Damien himself never fully relaxed, even while healing. One afternoon, while restocking supplies in the hospital's main storage area, Amara overheard 2 hospital workers talking near the nurse's station. "Did you hear? Someone said there's a mystery patient being kept somewhere in this hospital." "Off the records," one worker whispered. "Really? Who would do that?" the other asked. "I don't know, but Mr. Ferris from administration is asking questions. He wants to know why there are missing medical supplies with no patient files attached." Amara's blood turned cold. Someone was noticing the missing bandages, the extra medicine. the unusual patterns in supply use. If Mr. Ferris investigated further, he would eventually find the storage room and Damien. She rushed back to check on him as soon as her shift allowed, her mind racing with worry. "We have a problem," she said quietly, closing the storage room door behind her. "People are starting to ask questions. About missing supplies. About unusual activity." Damien, now looking stronger than before, sat up slightly. His sharp eyes studied her face. "How much do they know?" "Not much yet, but it's only a matter of time before someone connects everything together," Amara said, her voice tense. Damien was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked at her with an expression she had not seen before, something close to genuine concern. "If they find out you have been hiding me," he said slowly, "you will be in serious danger too. Not just from the hospital, from people much worse." Amara felt a chill run through her. She had been so focused on keeping Damien safe that she had not fully considered what would happen to her if the truth came out. "What do you mean?" she asked. Damien's face turned serious, his eyes darkening. "There are people looking for me right now. Dangerous people. If they learn a nurse has been keeping me alive in secret, they will not just come after me." He paused, his voice dropping lower. "They will come after you too." Amara stood frozen, the weight of his words sinking in. Outside the storage room, footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow, deliberate, coming closer. Amara's eyes shot to the door, her heart racing. Someone was coming. Amara stood frozen near the storage room door, listening to the footsteps growing louder in the hallway outside. Her heart hammered against her chest. She looked back at Damien, whose sharp eyes were already fixed on the door, his body tense despite his weakened state. The footsteps stopped right outside. Amara held her breath. A soft knock followed. "Amara? Are you in there?" A familiar voice called out. It was Nurse Farah, one of Amara's co-workers. Relief washed over Amara, but she still had to think quickly. She glanced at Damien, silently telling him to stay quiet, then slipped out of the storage room and shut the door firmly behind her. "Farah, you scared me," Amara said, forcing a small laugh. Farah tilted her head, studying Amara curiously. "What are you doing in the storage room this late? I saw you go in there almost every night this week." Amara's mind raced for an answer. "Just reorganizing supplies. Things have been a mess lately." Farah did not look fully convinced, but she shrugged. "Okay. Well, Mr. Ferris is walking around asking about missing inventory. Just be careful. He seemed serious about finding answers tonight." Amara's stomach dropped. "Tonight?" "Yes. He's checking storage rooms on this floor," Farah said before walking away toward the nurse's station. Amara's heart raced. She rushed back into the storage room, panic clear on her face. "Someone from hospital administration is checking storage rooms tonight," she whispered urgently to Damien. "We need to move you. Now." Damien, though still weak, forced himself to sit up. "Where?" Amara thought fast. "There's an old maintenance room in the basement. Barely anyone goes there. It's not perfect, but it will keep you hidden for tonight." She quickly signaled to two of Damien's men waiting nearby. Together, they carefully moved him through a quiet back stairwell, avoiding the main hallways completely. Amara's hand shook as she led the way, checking every corner before moving forward, terrified of running into Mr. Ferris. They made it to the basement just in time. Moments later, Amara heard Mr. Ferris's voice echoing from the floor above, asking hospital staff pointed questions about supply records. Amara let out a shaky breath once they settled Damien into the dusty maintenance room. "That was too close," she whispered. Damien watched her carefully, something unreadable in his expression. "You didn't have to help me tonight. You could have let them find me and been done with all of this." Amara looked at him, surprised by his words. "Would you have preferred that?" "No," Damien admitted quietly. "But I don't understand why you keep choosing to protect me. This isn't your fight." Amara sat down on an old crate nearby, exhaustion clear on her face. "Maybe it wasn't my fight in the beginning. But now, I don't know. I can't just let someone die, or get caught, when I have the power to help. That's who I am." Damien studied her for a long moment, something shifting behind his dark eyes. Respect, perhaps, or something deeper he wasn't ready to name. Meanwhile, far from the hospital, in a dimly lit room across the city, a different conversation was taking place. A group of dangerous-looking men stood around a table, maps and photographs spread out before them. At the head of the table sat a sharp-eyed man named Victor, Damien's greatest rival in the city's criminal underworld. "Damien should be dead," Victor said coldly, slamming his hand on the table. "My men shot him themselves. Yet somehow, he has vanished without a trace." One of his men stepped forward nervously. "Boss, we have reports. A source inside the city hospital mentioned unusual activity. Missing supplies. A secret patient being treated off the records." Victor's eyes narrowed dangerously. "The hospital? Of course. He's hiding right under everyone's nose." He turned to his men, his voice sharp and commanding. "Find out who has been treating him. I want a name. I want to know everyone involved, especially if it's someone weak enough to use against him." The men nodded quickly and left the room to begin their search. Back at the hospital, unaware of the danger closing in, Amara continued checking on Damien throughout the following days. His wound was healing well, his strength slowly returning. But something had changed between them, a quiet understanding, a fragile trust building despite everything working against it. One evening, as Amara changed his bandage, Damien caught her wrist gently. "You should know something," he said seriously. "The men who did this to me, they won't stop looking. And when they find out about you, they will use you to get to me. That's how they operate." Amara's hands paused. "So what do we do?" "I need to leave the hospital soon, before anyone connects you to me," Damien said, his voice heavy with something unfamiliar, guilt, perhaps. "I don't want you hurt because of me." Amara looked at him steadily. "And if I don't want you to leave yet, your wound isn't fully healed." Damien's jaw tightened. "Amara, these are not people who show mercy. If they find you, they won't just threaten you. They will." "I understand the risk," Amara interrupted firmly. "I've understood it since the night you walked through that door bleeding. But running now, before you're strong enough, could kill you faster than staying." Damien stared at her, clearly torn between his instinct to protect her by leaving and the truth in her words. Before he could respond, one of his men burst into the room, breathing heavily. "Boss, we have a problem," he said urgently. "Victor's men are asking questions at the hospital's front desk right now. They're asking specifically about a nurse who works night shifts." Amara's blood ran cold. She looked at Damien, fear flashing across her face for the first time since this entire ordeal began. Damien's expression hardened, his protective instincts taking over completely. "Get her out of here. Now," he ordered his men. "Whatever happens to me, she does not get hurt." Amara opened her mouth to protest, but the seriousness in Damien's eyes stopped her. For the first time, she realized just how deep she was already involved, and how dangerous her next choice could be. Amara's heart pounded as Damien's men quickly moved her away from the maintenance room. Her mind was spinning. Victor's men were upstairs, asking about her specifically. Somehow, they already knew she existed. "This way," one of Damien's men whispered, guiding her through a side exit into a quiet alley behind the hospital. The rain from days before had stopped, but the night air still felt heavy and tense. "Wait," Amara said, stopping suddenly. "I can't just leave. My mother, she needs me. My job. Boss said to keep you safe. That's the only job right now," the man replied firmly. Amara felt panic rising in her chest. Everything was moving too fast. Just weeks ago, her biggest worry was affording her mother's medicine. Now she was being smuggled out of her own workplace because a dangerous rival gang was hunting for her. They took her to a small, quiet apartment across the city, one of Damien's safe houses. It was simple but clean, nothing like the luxury she expected from a mafia boss's world. She sat on the couch, her hands trembling slightly as everything sank in. Hours later, Damien arrived, still moving carefully because of his healing wound, but stronger than before. He looked at Amara with concern the moment he saw her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I don't know anymore," Amara admitted honestly. "A week ago, my life was simple. Hard, but simple. Now I'm hiding from criminals because I helped save your life." Damien sat down across from her, guilt clear on his face. I never wanted this for you. I should have found another way. There wasn't another way, Amara said quietly. You would have died. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on both of them. Tell me something, Amara finally said. Why do people fear you so much? What happened to make you this way? Damien's eyes grew distant, memories clearly surfacing that he rarely spoke about. I wasn't always like this, he said slowly. I grew up poor, much like you probably did. My family had nothing. When my father died, my mother and younger sister depended on me. I did whatever it took to keep them alive, including things I'm not proud of. Amara listened quietly, seeing a side of him she hadn't expected. Eventually, those choices pulled me into this world completely, Damien continued. Power protects the people you love. At least, that's what I told myself. But power also makes enemies. Dangerous ones. Is your family safe now? Amara asked gently. Damien's expression darkened. My sister is safe, living far from this life. My mother passed away years ago, but the enemies I made along the way, they never stopped coming. Amara felt something shift inside her chest, sympathy, understanding, and something warmer she wasn't ready to name yet. I'm sorry, she said softly. Damien looked at her, surprised by her sincerity. You shouldn't feel sorry for me. I've done terrible things, Amara. Things you couldn't imagine. Maybe, Amara said, but I've also seen the man who begged me to stay by his side when he thought he might die. I've seen the man protecting me right now, even while he's still healing. People aren't only their worst choices. Damien stared at her, something vulnerable flashing across his usually guarded eyes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The space between them charged with unspoken feelings neither was ready to face. The moment was interrupted when one of Damien's men rushed into the room, his face pale with alarm. Boss, we have a serious problem, he said urgently. One of our own men has been talking to Victor's people. We just found out Marcus has been feeding them information for weeks. Damien's expression turned cold instantly, all softness disappearing. Marcus? He's been with me for 5 years. Money, boss. Victor paid him well, the man said grimly. He gave him details about your safe houses. This location might not be secure anymore. Amara watched Damien's face harden into something dangerous and unfamiliar. The Mafia boss the world feared, not the vulnerable man who had just shared his painful past with her. Where is Marcus now? Damien asked, his voice deadly calm. We have him, waiting for your orders. Damien stood up slowly, wincing slightly from his healing wound, but his eyes were focused and cold. I'll deal with him myself. Damien, wait, Amara said, standing up quickly, fear in her voice. What are you going to do? Damien turned to look at her, his expression softening only slightly. This is my world, Amara. Betrayal has consequences here. It's how things survive. But you should stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except my men, Damien said firmly, cutting off her protest. Before Amara could respond further, Damien left with his men, leaving her alone in the quiet apartment, her mind racing with worry and fear for what he might do, and fear of what kind of man he truly was. Hours passed in tense silence. Amara paced the small apartment, unable to calm her racing thoughts. Just as exhaustion began pulling at her, a sudden knock came at the door. She froze, remembering Damien's warning. It's me, Damien's voice called out quietly from the other side. Amara rushed to open the door. Damien stood there, looking tired and troubled, but unharmed. Relief flooded through her before she could stop herself. Is it done? She asked carefully, unsure if she wanted to know the details. Damien nodded slowly, his eyes distant. Marcus won't be a problem anymore. But Victor knows more than we thought. He's getting closer, Amara, and he specifically mentioned wanting to know about the nurse who saved me. Amara's stomach twisted with fear. What does that mean for us? Damien looked at her, his eyes filled with a dangerous mix of determination and fear. Not fear for himself, but for her. It means, he said quietly, that Victor now sees you as a way to hurt me, and I will do anything to make sure that never happens. Days passed in tense quiet after Marcus's betrayal was dealt with. Amara stayed mostly inside the safe house, only venturing out with Damien's men when absolutely necessary. She missed her mother terribly, only able to speak to her through short, careful phone calls, always worried the calls could somehow be traced. Damien visited often, his wound now almost fully healed. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Slowly, the walls between them, the Mafia boss and the poor nurse, began to crumble. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner in the safe house, Damien looked at Amara with an expression she hadn't seen before. Open, honest, almost unguarded. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "I've arranged for your mother to be moved somewhere safe. New doctors, better medicine, a comfortable place to stay. No cost to you." Amara's eyes widened in surprise. "Damien, I can't accept that. It's too much." "You saved my life," Damien said firmly. "This is the least I can do. Besides," he paused, his eyes softening further, "I care about what happens to you. Both of you." Amara felt her heart race at his words. Despite everything, the danger, the fear, the world he came from, she could no longer deny the feelings growing inside her. "Damien, this is dangerous. What we're doing, what we're feeling. It could get us both killed," she whispered. "I know," Damien admitted. "But some things are worth the risk." Before Amara could respond, one of Damien's men burst into the room, his face pale with urgency. "Boss, we have a serious situation," he said quickly. "Victor's men were spotted near your sister's location. We think it's a distraction." Damien's face hardened instantly. A distraction from what? Before the man could answer, a loud crash echoed from the front of the safe house. Gunfire erupted outside, chaos breaking loose in seconds. "They found us," another man shouted, rushing in with his weapon raised. Damien grabbed Amara's arm, pulling her toward a hidden exit at the back of the house. "Stay close to me. Don't stop moving," he ordered. They rushed through a narrow hallway as gunfire echoed behind them. Amara's heart pounded wildly, fear gripping every part of her body. This was the danger Damien had always warned her about. Now it was finally here, violent and real. They made it outside into a dark alley, but before they could escape further, 3 armed men blocked their path, weapons raised directly at them. "Victor sends his regards," one of the men sneered. Damien pushed Amara behind him protectively. "This is between me and Victor. Let her go." The lead gunman laughed coldly. "Victor wants her too. Says she'll make excellent leverage." Everything happened in a blur. Damien lunged forward, fighting the closest gunman with skilled, brutal efficiency despite his healing wound. Amara watched in terror as chaos erupted around her, fists, gunfire, shouting. One of the attackers grabbed Amara roughly from behind, dragging her away as she screamed and struggled against his grip. "Amara!" Damien shouted, fighting desperately to reach her, but 2 more men blocked his path. The attacker forced Amara into a waiting car, her cries muffled as the vehicle sped away into the night, leaving Damien battling his remaining attackers, panic and fury burning in his chest. Amara was taken to an abandoned warehouse across the city. Rough hands pushed her into a dimly lit room, tying her wrists to a chair. Fear coursed through her body as she looked around at her captors. Moments later, Victor himself walked in, his sharp eyes studying her with cold curiosity. "So, you're the nurse who's been keeping Damien alive," Victor said, circling her slowly. "Interesting. I expected someone more impressive." "Let me go," Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her fear. Victor smiled coldly. "Once Damien arrives to save his precious nurse, this will all be over quickly. He won't be able to resist coming for you. That's his weakness now, you." Amara's mind raced. She understood now what Victor's plan truly was. This wasn't just about capturing her. It was a trap designed specifically to lure Damien into a vulnerable position where Victor's men could finally kill him. "You're using me to kill him," Amara said quietly, realization dawning in her voice. "Smart girl," Victor said with a cruel smile. "Now we just wait." Meanwhile, Damien, injured and furious, regrouped with his remaining men. Blood dripped from a cut above his eyebrow, but his focus remained sharp and determined. "We know where Victor's warehouse is," one of his men reported. But it's heavily guarded. Going in directly would be suicide. Damien's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with fierce determination. I don't care about the risk. Amara is in there because of me. I will not lose her. His men exchanged uncertain glances, clearly worried about their boss's uncharacteristic emotional urgency. But they nodded in agreement, beginning to plan a careful, strategic approach to the rescue. Back at the warehouse, Amara sat tensely, her wrists aching from the tight ropes. Victor paced nearby, occasionally glancing at his watch, clearly expecting Damien's imminent arrival. He cares about you, doesn't he? Victor asked suddenly, studying Amara's face closely. I can see it. Interesting, considering Damien has never cared about anyone in years. You must be quite special. Amara remained silent, refusing to give Victor any satisfaction. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered, then went completely dark. Shouts and gunfire erupted outside, chaos breaking loose once again. He's here, Victor said, a dangerous smile spreading across his face. Right on schedule. Amara's heart raced with fear and hope simultaneously. She knew Damien was risking everything to save her, but she also feared this rescue attempt might be exactly the trap Victor intended it to be all along. Darkness covered the warehouse as gunfire echoed through the halls. Amara sat tied to the chair, her heart racing with every shout and crash she heard outside the room. Victor stood near the door, gun in hand, his eyes fixed and ready. Stay quiet, Victor warned her coldly. This will be over soon. Suddenly, the door burst open. Two of Victor's men rushed in, breathing heavily. Boss, Damien's men are everywhere. We're losing ground fast, one of them said urgently. Victor's expression darkened with anger. He came prepared. Fine. Let's finish this quickly then. He grabbed Amara roughly by the arm, pulling her up from the chair, using her as a shield as he moved toward the warehouse's main floor. Amara struggled weakly, her wrists still aching from the ropes, now hanging loose around them. As they entered the main open area, Damien stood there, breathing hard, blood on his shirt, but his eyes burning with fierce determination. Around him, most of Victor's men lay defeated or had fled entirely. Let her go, Victor, Damien said, his voice low and dangerous. This is between us. It always was. Victor smiled coldly, keeping Amara close, his gun pressed against her side. You've grown soft, Damien. All this over one nurse? Pathetic. She has nothing to do with our history, Damien said, taking a slow step forward. Release her, and you and I can settle this properly. Victor laughed bitterly. You think I'll just let my only advantage go? No. This ends with you dead, and her as a reminder that no one crosses me and survives. Amara's mind raced, fear gripping her chest tightly. She looked at Damien, seeing the desperation hidden behind his controlled expression. She realized then that she couldn't simply wait to be saved. She had to act. Gathering every ounce of courage she had, Amara suddenly stomped hard on Victor's foot and threw her elbow back into his stomach with all her strength. Startled, Victor's grip loosened just enough for Amara to break free, stumbling forward away from him. Now, she screamed toward Damien. Damien moved instantly, lunging forward as Victor raised his gun again in shock and anger. A gunshot rang out, echoing loudly through the warehouse. For a terrifying moment, everything froze. Then Victor collapsed to the ground, clutching his shoulder in pain, disarmed and defeated. Damien stood over him, breathing heavily, his own gun still raised, eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. It's over, Victor, Damien said coldly. You lose. Damien's remaining men quickly moved in, securing Victor and his fallen men. Damien immediately turned away from his defeated rival, rushing straight to Amara, who stood trembling but unharmed. Are you hurt? Damien asked urgently, his hands gently checking her arms, her face, searching for any injury. I'm okay, Amara said, her voice shaking slightly. I'm okay, Damien. Relief flooded through Damien's face, replacing the fierce anger from moments before. Without thinking, he pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her close as if afraid she might disappear if he let go. I thought I might lose you, he whispered against her hair. I couldn't. I wouldn't have survived that. Amara held onto him just as tightly, tears finally escaping down her cheeks now that the danger had passed. "You came for me," she whispered. "You really came." "I will always come for you," Damien said firmly, pulling back slightly to look into her eyes. "Amara, I know this world is dangerous. I know it's not the life you dreamed of, but I need you to know my feelings for you are real. You are the only good thing that has happened to me in years." Amara's heart swelled with emotion, tears still falling freely. "Damien, I'm scared. Scared of this world. Scared of losing you. Scared of everything that comes with loving someone like you." "I understand if you want to walk away," Damien said quietly, though pain flickered behind his eyes at the thought. "I would understand completely if you chose a safer life, far from all of this." Amara looked at him for a long moment, memories flashing through her mind. The frightened but determined man who begged her to stay that first bloody night, the vulnerable soul who shared his painful past, the fierce protector who risked everything to save her tonight. "I've thought about walking away every single day since this began," Amara admitted softly. "But every time, I realized something." "What's that?" Damien asked, searching her face hopefully. "I don't want a life without you in it," Amara said, her voice steady despite her tears. "Danger and all. I choose you, Damien. I choose this." Damien's eyes softened completely, years of guarded walls finally crumbling entirely. He gently cupped her face in his hands. "Stay with me," he whispered, echoing the same desperate words he had spoken that very first night. "Not just tonight. Forever, if you'll have me." Amara smiled through her tears, leaning into his touch. "Forever," she whispered back. Weeks later, life slowly began settling into a new, unexpected rhythm. Amara's mother, now safely recovering in comfortable care, smiled brightly whenever Amara visited, grateful for the strange twist of fate that had brought her daughter this new, protected life. Amara still worked occasionally at the hospital, though now with far more careful boundaries and protection surrounding her. Damien, his empire more secure after Victor's downfall, made sure she never had to fear that dangerous world touching her life uninvited again. Every night, no matter how difficult or dangerous his day had been, Damien returned home to Amara, holding her close, grateful beyond words for the poor nurse who once saved his life, and then, without meaning to, saved his heart as well. And every night, Amara stayed by his side, never leaving again, just as she had promised.